Hey guys, so I feel a little bit compelled to make a video and about something that's kind of been on my mind a little bit lately. I am no stranger to the Gospels. I've read it through them multiple times, listened to them multiple times, but what I find incredible is that certain little things that you never really notice or pick out um, until you've read them multiple times, I guess you could say. It's like every time you read it, it's like something new stands out, which is one of the fascinating things about the Bible itself. Uh, but in particular, I've been going through Luke lately, and one of the things that I found in Luke chapter 9, verse I don't think I can swap this camera angle, but Luke chapter 9, and going down into verse 51, between verse 51 and 56, basically Jesus is on the way to Jerusalem, and this is right before the Passover. They're on their way there, and this is when he's basically going there to die, and they approach a Samaritan town, and the town does not receive him. They don't really receive him well, which I guess back in the day, especially in ancient Jewish culture, hospitality was a huge thing. And when like Jesus he would command his disciples to go out places, and if places did not receive him, he said to shake the dust off your feet as a testimony against them. And I think it maybe have more meanings than just one. Maybe it's more to do than just the. I mean, they're basically rejecting the gospel at that point, but it's also kind of probably a taboo thing to not take care of people who are sojourners or whatever. Anyways, so he's walking through there, and I'll just read this. He says, "When the days were approaching for his ascension, he was determined to go to Jerusalem, and he sent messengers on ahead of him, and they went and entered a village of the Samaritans to make arrangements for him. But they did not receive him because he was traveling toward Jerusalem. When his disciples James and John saw this, they said, 'Lord, do you want us to command fire to come down from heaven and consume them?'" What? You just want us to destroy all these people? Jesus, come on. And Jesus is like, he turned, then verse 55 says, he turned and rebuked them and said, "You do not know what kind of spirit you are of, for the Son of Man did not come to destroy men's lives, but to save them." And I also learned that this little verse between 55 and 56 was not included in all manuscripts. So, kind of going back to, excuse me, some thoughts on the Bible and different translations. One thing that I've been doing lately in my daily reading habits is I read a Bible side by side, and I particularly like the ESV and the NASB, the New American Standard Bible. And some days one will have verses cut out of it, and maybe vice versa other days, but there's usually a footnote explaining why, and one usually is because something was not included in one of the early manuscripts. Maybe some literal additions were here and there added later on to manuscripts, and that's why certain versions they will leave out verses. Now, I haven't done any type of in-depth study. There's a lot of people that balk about the NIV leaving out a lot of verses, and I have not done enough study to really understand what that's all about. But I will say that sometimes that is the case. So, anyways, going on, and I know this is getting to be a longer video, but one of the other things I started to really realize and think about while reading the Gospels this time was that Jesus had way more followers and disciples than just the 12, and the 12 who were known as the apostles. But he also had a lot of disciples that he followed, or that followed him, excuse me. And see, at the very first verse of chapter 9, Luke chapter 9, he calls the 12 together and gave them power and authority over all demons and to heal diseases. We go on to chapter 1 of verse 1 of chapter 10, and he basically does the same thing, but he appoints, and this is kind of another one of these translation things. One version says he appoints 72, one version says he appoints 70. It's just kind of a difference in the translations. And if you go back to other really ancient stuff, it's kind of interesting that Jesus appointed 72, because if you know anything about the Tower of Babel, based on some I've seen this in extra biblical texts like the Book of Jasher, where when God went to stir up the languages of the people from the Tower of Babel, he called forth the foremost 72 angels that stood before him. So I just thought it was interesting to parallel how Jesus sent out his 12 disciples and then turns around the very next chapter and sends out 72. And I don't even remember this, like, at all. From every time I've read this throughout my, basically my entire life, I've read the book of Luke multiple times, and I don't recall this story at all. And this is chapter 10 once again. But yeah, he has these. Then he sends these out, and basically the same thing. He gives them power over demons and to heal diseases. And they come back to him a little bit later, and they're like, "Wow, even the demons are subject to us in your name." And he said, I was watching Satan fall from heaven like lightning. Behold, I have given you authority to tread on serpents and scorpions and over all the power of the enemy, and nothing will injure you. Nevertheless, do not rejoice in this, that the spirits are subject to you, but rejoice that your names are recorded in heaven. Like, he's really looking towards the greater gift here, which is pretty awesome. But those were just a couple of things that I thought were really interesting that I wanted to share, and hopefully you found some value in them. Hopefully it'll give you an encouragement to go back and reread your Bible, maybe read some different versions of the Bible, see if there's anything maybe you've missed or overlooked before. Like I said before, usually I think that just about every time you read it, something new will jump out at you. And yeah, blessings to you all. Awesome.